Good morning, coffee moaners. Hello, hello, good morning. Good morning, Judith Alexander, Stuart G, Margaret O'Brien. Welcome. It's Tuesday morning and we are in a different room. We're in the red room. Morning, how are we all? How are you? I hope you're well. Hope everyone is good this morning. If you haven't and you like to have an alternate take on some of the mainstream news, the way in which the mainstream media cover the news, not all of the news, we're not a comprehensive news service, but we like to tackle some of the topics that are topical at any time. But we also like to tackle topics that are sort of more what they call features-based, lifestyle, how to live better, mental health, relationships, etc., etc. So if you haven't, do subscribe. You can click, I don't think people realize, you can click on the alarm bell when you subscribe. You can choose 3 different types of alert. One can be everything. We're more than likely to drive you insane, but you can click that. So the next one I think is tailored. So if you're into films, you'll get more notification of film content. If it's Gaza, if it's Trump, then you'll get that stuff. You'll be notified of that stuff. And the other one is, I think the other one is not to be notified at all, but you just subscribe. Anyway, Stuart G, you're not feeling well. What's wrong, matey? Oh dear. If you're listening on podcast, I'm talking to all of the members of our lovely community here on YouTube. And Stuart G, just so that everyone knows who listens to this live in any format on any platform, isn't feeling well. For next April Fools, we should have Coffee Moaning Sports Edition. What would that entail? Hello, Francis Winrow. Not seeing your name. That's an incredibly decent, wholesome name, Francis Winrow. Very, very strong name. Mark, how is Hannah? Hannah is good. I think Nadia is seeing her this Friday, actually. She's still going through treatment. I think she's in a steady place. It's that sort of weird place where, thankfully, things haven't got worse. Things have leveled, I think. But yeah, I'm sure Nadia will give you a much more intimate update. And also, I think there's certain stuff that they do and don't want to share at the certain times. So yes, feel better. I feel like I've been missing the lives lately. Good to be here. Victoria Moore, you haven't missed much. Of course you have. You've missed everything. What's wrong with you? Can you see there? Look. There's a little gnome going for a wee. It's a Christmas present to me. What are we talking about? Why the fuck is the UK preparing? Oh, by the way, if you're new, we swear. Why is the UK preparing for World War III? Why are we seeing images of Starmer getting prepared for war? We need to be prepared for war, always prepared for war, prepare for change, prepare for rule, for war, prepare things. Prepare for war. Maybe if we didn't blow up all his bombers in Siberia, we wouldn't need to prepare for war. Just a thought, just a contentious thought. There's lots of different shards and lots of different ways one can approach this story. So I want to talk to you guys about, are you prepared for war? Will you get prepared for war? Oh, was she? She was on TV this morning. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, how lovely. Oh, well, they're probably seeing each other this morning. How is she? I'll ask you, how is she? How is Hannah? Is she good? I've got a cold, but it's nothing to what a lot of folk are going through, says Stuart G. I'll have to check it out afterwards. Yeah. Annie Brown didn't like, well, people will be people, won't they, Annie Brown? It doesn't bother. It's water off a duck's back. Everyone's doing stuff for clicks and clickbait and stuff like that. Anyway, so why is the UK preparing for war? Is it war? Are we going to war? Is it all kind of just a kind of elaborate way to, I don't know what, put them off fighting us? I always struggle with the idea that Russia would want to invade us. I think Russia just finds us fucking annoying. I think they might want to knock us off the map for a bit. I don't think they want to invade us. HW loved Curly Cook's Sunday, just gone. Always the alfresco ones outside in your beautiful garden. That's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely having Nadia's parents here as well, Betty and Teddy. We're a military family, says Rachel Pickard. Always prepared. Do you have a gun by the front door? Literally. An ex-girlfriend of mine, her dad was in the military. Family, in fact, lived on Catterick Garrison. I know there's a pretty grisly story surrounding a soldier there who was found dead. But yes, preparedness for war. They didn't have guns by their front door. But Faith Goodman, I really think the UK should realise we are so small and and insignificant within the world. We're not important enough for the likes of Putin or Netanyahu. Will never change their plans because of something we say. No, which is why, in a weird way, he's got nothing to risk by absolutely calling out the genocide. Do you know what I mean? I think what we need is some bold, prepared leadership that's not afraid to say what it feels. The thing is, I don't think Starmer knows what he feels. I think if we said to Starmer, just say what you feel, Keir, just speak from the heart, he'd be like, prepared. I think I'm prepared for change. I don't think he'd know what to do. Deflection from Starmer Fuhrer. Oh, Penny Albertella. That's strong language. Christine Bett. Hey, Dan, embarrassed that he's from. Oh, dear. Well, looking forward to Thursday evening, Mark. I know. So are we. It's the screening at the West Norwood Picture House of The Encampments, a film about the student protests in America. And I'm really interested to talk to the director about not only what we see and what occurs in the film, but the aftermath. Because I was in New York, I think around the tail end of the encampments, or once they'd been moved on, and what's happened to a lot of the students since. I think there's possibly another entire documentary. Penny Albertella, he doesn't have a heart, he has just a wallet. Well, look, here's an image. We've shown this image before, to be fair. In the spirit of fairness, this wasn't him yesterday. But look, there he is. Preparedness. He's wearing one stocking. Always find that you must wear a stocking when you're preparing for war. Change is good. Change is preparedness. We need to be prepared in an ever increasing, dangerous, unprepared world. There he is. You can see the man on the left there is trying to show him how to attach his helmet. I've got this. I know what I'm doing. I know. You can tell that the guy on the left has just reached his frustration level. This is an image for those of you listening. He's just like, would you mind just letting me do that? Because there is a slight concern, sir, that you're going to catch your chin in your strap. Oh wow, me too. West Norwood, one of my old haunts when I worked in Brixton. Fantastic. When did Russia last attack us? Penny Albertella. Exactly. I mean, well, some would say they're attacking us all the time. I think they've attacked Greg's. I think they've attacked the Co-op. I think they've attacked. Oh, it's all a distraction, Lamia. So, I mean, look, I'm not trying to lead us in any one direction, but I am. I do feel it's all a distraction. I hate to say it. I feel everything. Unfortunately, the mainstream media and the governments of the West have lost their right to be trusted. They've lost their right to be trusted, and in many regards, lost their right to be listened to or believed. You know, they need a sort of rules. Was it a sort of rule-based order? Is that the phrase? They need rules. They need people to observe those rules. Otherwise, you have chaos. But actually, you start to ask questions about what that chaos is serving, and you realize it's just about propping up a status quo that serves those in charge. I mean, Francis Winrow makes a good point, though. We can't let Russia get our Greg's sausage rolls. You're right. And I don't think, to be brutal, I mean, I've got a horrible feeling if you were to ask the vast majority of youngsters, and one of the proposals, Keir Starmer's basically saying that, well, the Labour Party, if you want to know what the story is, the Labour Party have said, right, we've got to throw a lot of money at weaponry and at our army. We need to be war ready, ready for war. War ready means ready for war, preparedness. And one of the things they're going to do, apart from, I was just listening to, is it John Healey, the defence minister, on the radio this morning? They were saying to him, how many subs are you going to make and nuclear subs, and how much are they going to cost? He didn't know how many they were going to make, or I think he said 12, but he doesn't know how much they're going to cost. And I can't stand Nick Ferrari, you know I can't. And I wish he held the same torch to the feet of Israeli spokespeople as he does with the Labour Party. I really do. The inconsistency of journalists. Anyway, John, the Labour Party, he was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know how much they, basically doesn't know how much they cost. How can you say you're going to build 12 if you don't know how much they cost? And then, if Russia really is going to invade us, we've also said to them, it won't be until 2034. Forgive me, my Fitbit is charging, but let me just pull it off my charger and just have, okay, so in Vladivostok or somewhere, some of them, Mr. Putin, they will not be able to get the Russian subs ready until 2034. You'll be like, fuck it, brilliant. Let's head to the Algarve for a bit. Let's kick back, chill out, and we'll bomb them in about 2030. It's all just pantaloons, isn't it? Let's have a listen to the big man himself.
War fighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready. To deliver peace through strength. Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play. Because we have to...
Did you see the girl behind him there just look to her side? Look, she's like, fucking hell. It's not... Okay, here's the thing. Always remember Nadia saying at a film festival, it's not a good sign when you're watching a short film that's, say, 17 minutes long and you're bored 3 minutes in. That's right. It's not a good sign when your prime minister is talking about our purpose is to be prepared. And I'm more interested in everyone in the back row. I mean, you know, and I get it, Michu. This isn't about... Russia is not going to be rolling tanks over the Kent border and into Kent. You know, that's just not going to happen. What they could do is they could completely cripple us with a couple of missiles, undersea links, hitting our infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get it. Very the workman-like side of conflict and getting prepared and being more robust. I can understand, for example, things like getting some kind of dome or kind of self-defense. But I think the idea that we're going to somehow, you know, be prepared for war. We're not going to be prepared to go and fight. You know, we've got something like 70,000 troops, or we're supposed to have, and they're talking about we might have to send 7,500 if they invade Lithuania. I mean, come on, we're a drop in the ocean. But I get it. I get that we need our infrastructure to be safe. But I think he needs to make that clear, because one of the other proposals that he's making is this: teaching in schools the importance of the army. Teaching in schools the importance of the army. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Is engaging in this stuff? I mean, you know, let's say most of us here are peace lovers. Most of us want, you know, everyone to be a bit more kumbaya in the world and kind of huggy. I read the most disgustingly, hideously misogynistic, passive-aggressive, violent piece in the Telegraph today. Once again, about Greta Thunberg, describing them as narcissistic do-gooders. And it's just like, fucking hell. What I've begun to realize is people who are incapable of a humanitarian feeling or empathy, the reason they pull down or try and sort of target and troll those who have it is because they can't even imagine what it must be like to have compassion. It's such an alien concept. Whoever the fuckwad was that wrote the piece in the Telegraph, I think Brendan owes somebody. I mean, what a joke. Just because you to pull them down and to not hold any of the fucking appalling leaders to, oh, it just drives me nuts. Anyway, me too. Troops make no difference. Modern warfare is infrastructure warfare. Modern armies are more about tech wars, piloting UAVs, prototyping remote weapons, and now even remotely operated tanks. Yes, but look at Ukraine. I tell you something else that really fucks me off as well. In fact, it occurs in the rest of his prepared speech.
Has a role to play. Because we have to recognize that things have changed. In the world of today, the front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate.
Oh, I didn't get it. I lost interest. He says, we never thought we would see tanks rolling into another country in Europe. Now, of course, one is not in any way, shape or form belittling the fact that Ukraine was invaded and its sovereignty has been challenged and compromised. But I'm going to say this loud and proud. I think it's a stretch to keep talking about Ukraine as a European country about which we are perplexed that tanks rolled in. Because what he's clearly invoking is the idea of when the tanks rolled in from Germany into France, into Spain, into Belgium, into Poland. We're talking, and it's not to diminish the importance of Ukraine, but to really talk, you know, I don't think any of us really wholesomely think of Ukraine as a European country. I would argue that it's been the mainstream media in the West. It's served our purposes as a form of kind of propaganda to say that Ukraine is a fully European country. This is, it's just not. It's got deep ties to Russia. It's got deep ties to that Asiatic sort of area. And, I just think sometimes I just find there's some real manipulation saying we never thought we'd see tanks roll into Europe. Well, okay, well, not, hang on a minute. Threatening to be a NATO country on the border of Russia is going to get a response. And I just think sometimes we are a bit like around COVID with fucking, the vaccines. You're not a bit totally like if you criticize Israel, though that is shifting, it is changing. You're just not allowed to ask these questions. And if you do, you're somehow, in the camp of the enemy. Continental Europe, insofar as, parts of Russia used to, you look at a map of Russia and it kind of creeps into Europe. But to talk about it in the to use the language of we never thought we'd see tanks roll into Europe again. Hang on, whoa. When they rolled into Europe before, there were places like the fucking Arc de Triomphe. And we're talking about Western Europe. That's what was dramatic about that. Rachel, he is desperate to have his Churchill moment, and you're prepared for war. So I agree. I don't think it's likely that we will be attacked, but I do think what could happen is that we could be attacked by missiles, and we could be, in any kind of conflict that evolves or develops in the Eastern Bloc countries, if Lithuania or, if we get involved there and then Russia gets really angry. I don't know. And we're not in a situation where we can rely on old Trumpy boy. So I can see why we feel we need to prepare for World War III, but I have to confess, here's the other thought. Does anyone feel this? No amount of what we spend and however much we bend and cripple our economy to spend it is probably going to allow us to resist any potential attack for about 10 days longer than normal. If they start sending drones over, if they do what the Ukrainians did in Siberia with the Russian, am I on my own in thinking I don't think it was a good idea to provocatively blow up his bombers in Siberia? I mean, it is odd that they haven't replied. Do you think the West knows or thinks that Russia is actually militarily really shit and compromised, and that's why they've done it? Because for me, when I saw the story, I was like, oh, fucking hell, talk about poke the bear. Did anyone else think that? Did anyone for a moment think, is that a good idea? Or does everyone just go, hey, just blow up his bombers, get the Ukrainian flag out, looks a bit like the British one. I didn't. I just went, oh, fuck, how do we manage telling the kids all the headlines that are going to come out of this? And then you see headlines in the Sun. Putin knows that a localized nuclear attack on Ukraine could shut them up. Well, it would shut them up. I just find it perplexing that we keep going, hey, look at us, and we can't fucking do a thing anyway. Their military is shit. Russia hasn't had an effective military in over 100 years. I'm sure, but do you want to be poking the bear, bombing his bombers up in the Siberia? Well, I don't know. Turkey isn't Europe either, only the Istanbul bit. Most of Turkey is. I agree. I think of Turkey as being in Asia. I find this sort of, you can kind of just for a moment think about if you're not part of Europe and then looking at the way in which Europe, it's a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest. Maybe Russia is sitting there going, hang on a minute. Why are they in the Eurovisions? Why are they in Europe? Hang on, what the fuck? Europe seems to it's like NATO, isn't it? And it's not that these aren't bad things. It's just, you've got to understand that there are different perspectives on the world. We have a very Euro-Western centric attitude to it all. First act of war is defense, Lisa Lewis. Oh, tell you who's been trotting that one out. Israel for bloody months. Got the right to self-defense, and then we've got the right to genocide. That's how it runs. Self-defense. Did you know that in the prosecution of genocides in history, the argument of self-defense as the prelude to committing a genocide is the way? And if you think about even Nazi Germany, the idea sold to the German population was we need to marginalize the Jews in this section of society as a means of self-defense. cultural self-defense. First act is always comms block, Israel banning media. Yeah, you see, and we don't ban the media here because we have such a compliant mainstream media. And we were talking about it a little bit last night, how the way in which, on the one hand, lots and lots of activists I know are very frustrated with the way in which Instagram, YouTube, there's a feeling and a perception that they do control. And I think, there's lots of evidence that they've controlled Free Palestine, pro-Palestine accounts, etc., etc. But then it's a sort of Faustian pact, because if it wasn't for the social media platforms, there wouldn't be places like even here just to talk or air other opinions and thoughts and see the footage coming out. So there's a kind of devil in the deep blue sea. On the one hand, it's like, fucking hell, I see lots of people bemoaning and criticizing and damning the social media platforms. But then if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have the coverage. Penny Albertella, we have a disgraceful mainstream media. I stopped buying newspapers back in the 80s. I stopped buying them about 5 weeks ago because I'd realized we could get better news on there. I agree. I mean, whether it be newspapers or on their apps or digital, it's just... And also the other thing is, I sat down to watch the BBC 6 o'clock news for a sort of hit of kind of nostalgia. Oh my God, it is news for toddlers. It is news for toddlers. I mean, I was shocked. It's like, I'm amazed they don't have like a, let's go through the round window, and they don't have crayons and great big pointy sticks. It's beyond dumbed down. I was shocked. I was like, fuck's sake. You're talking to us like we're a bunch of lemons. Anyway, we are going to be talking about Gaza in a separate. I'm going to do a separate upload. I want to talk about Matthew Miller. I also want to talk about Mick Huckabee, and I also want to talk about the what seems to have become a sport for the Israeli provision of humanitarian aid, which is shoot as many Gazans as you can each time you give them food. So we're going to be doing that in a separate upload later today. In other news, solemn news. This is police have begun a major new search for Madeleine McCann. This is news that, again, we don't know the exact details of the tip-off, but in Portugal, they're reopening or re-examining trenches on a certain route where, what's his name? The guy, is it Merck? What's his name? The 48-year-old German, what's his name? Christian Bruckner, who's about to kind of leave prison. He was convicted of rape, and he's due to come up for parole, I think, in about 4 months or something like that. Anyway, they are looking into new leads, new lines of investigation, German police, obviously regarding the loss of Madeleine McCann. I think reading, this is the chap who's kind of a prime suspect at the heart of all of this. New Maddie tip-off, Madeleine McCann cops to scour roadwork trenches and Bruckner's rat run of paths using radar in new search for her body. And I just wanted to once again ask the question here. And I do want to ask the question, and I know that we've had lots of people on here, why did people get so angry about the Madeleine McCann story still? Why do people sort of seem resentful almost of the parents? I mean, I think no one will have punished themselves more than the parents for an oversight, a mistake. There, but for the grace of God goes every parent who perhaps hasn't for a moment left a baby in a pram. I mean, my mum used to leave me in a pram all the time because she'd gone through, she was young, she'd forgot, she had a bit of postnatal depression. People make, different decisions and have made different decisions based on safety kind of evaluations. And it was a different era and a different time. Personally, we said at the time, we wouldn't necessarily have done that. Elaine Denning, simply because they left. Okay, let me be a bit more personal. And there won't be a judgment here because I do want to understand. Excuse me, Elaine Denning, simply because they left the children alone in the apartment. But again, we don't know the extent to which, I know we saw lots of kind of diagrams and what have you of the space, and you don't know the extent to which, when you're on holiday, a space or a resort can give you a sense of safety, even if it's not real, even if it's not complete, and even though it doesn't mean you take completely your eye off the ball. And given, let's not forget, when she went missing. It wasn't like there'd been a big story prior to that about a kid going missing. So it wasn't like it was like, I don't think anyone left their children alone again after the Madeleine McCann, because it was a sort of game changer. But okay, here's the question. Has anyone here found yourself at any point posting really angrily and in a distressed fashion about the fact that against the McCann parents? And maybe over time you've realized, okay, well, maybe I was a bit too harsh. Because I think, everyone tries to cope with these tragedies in different ways. Or do you know anyone whose first response was just to be hostile towards the parents? Edward Bevington, seen some of the worst. I have. Yeah, Claire Scott. I remember the press being obsessed over the mother's lack of emotion. Could it have been shock? Karen A. Smith, how are you? I hope you're well. I totally agree with Mark. We left our kids in hotel bedrooms with a listening service. It horrifies me now, but we all did it. Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're a bad parent because you did it. I bet loads of kids get left alone. I mean, lots of kids get left alone in their homes. Laura Lou, people get angry because the parents did wrong in leaving the kids the way they did. Had they been a poorer family, they would have been charged. They left 3 kids far away alone. It was never okay. That's interesting, Laura Lou. So what you're saying is there a perception that because they were a middle-class family, they were allowed to get past it? So in a sense, what you're saying, there was a sort of way back when, and still, a sort of not two-tier policing, but a sort of 2-tier response or treatment. Hi, Tori. No, of course not. Well done them for keeping fighting and keeping up a campaign. As a parent, you would never give up. And as a parent, I don't think you can judge how a parent who's lost a child looks or feels, or how they present themselves in public. You're damned if you get on with your life. You're damned if you don't. Dan, I think it's the amount of police time spent on this case when there are many other missing children who are missing. Yeah, I can see that. I can understand that. And I can certainly understand if you were the parent of another child thinking, why do I not get the same attention? I've never posted angrily about it, Grace Ann Martin, but there was complete and utter shock at what they did. They should have been held responsible for the disappearance. As I say, parents have been charged for less. Have they? I mean, I'm not being facetious. I mean, let's not forget the context. Within a resort. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the resorts that we've stayed in across our lives. I remember in Jordan, there was a very sort of, you had a security gate, you had sort of people at the front desk. You then had a complex of kind of apartments and rooms. And one of the things they invited you to do was to sort of let the kids run to the playground, run to the swimming pool. I would always go with them, obviously. Natty was always pie-eyed. No, I'm joking. I would always go with them because I'm like that. But again, if you were a slightly less helicoptery parent than us, are you wrong to assume that there's some safety? I'm just curious. People let their guard down when they're on holiday, Mitchell. I mean, and as I keep saying, let's not forget they are the family with Madeleine McCann. It's not like there was a precedent set of a big story like the Madeleine McCann that we all have now and we all think about when we go abroad. So they won't have even had that. Of course, they wouldn't have had that precedent that was threaded through them. There is that odd thing when you go abroad and you have a little bit of Britain abroad and you feel a bit safer. Imagine the news. Sorry, Laura Lou. Imagine the news if it had been a haven holiday resort, kids left in a caravan alone, the parents would have been arrested. I'm sure of it. It's a good point. It's a fair point. I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying. Victoria Moore, I'm 34 and we always stayed with our parents in the pram or asleep on chairs put together. I would never let any of my kids out of my sight. I struggled letting them go to the bus stop when they were 20. Sarah D, I wouldn't go out and leave my child in an apartment in a foreign country across the resort to me. I wouldn't even do that in the UK. Well, again, yes, I mean, I think I wouldn't. We wouldn't. I mean, I remember thinking at the time, I wouldn't have done that. But I also didn't remember thinking, I didn't feel hugely judgmental of them. I literally never had a moment. I'm not saying I'm right for this, but I just never had a moment where I thought, good God, what on earth were they thinking? I just thought, oh God, that's so unfortunate. Fucking hell. They were obviously the kind of parents who felt comfortable enough to do that. Grace Ann Martin, there were a few people there, couldn't each adult have stayed with the kids for a period of time so that they weren't on their own. Faith Goodman, feel sorry for all the other parents over the last 18 years that haven't had any publicity. Yeah, Zoe, the Netflix documentary is really good about it all. Mile, I'm loath to leave my cousins alone when out in public, and they're 15 and 11. I can't imagine leaving small children alone, and I'm not even a parent. I 100% agree. It's anathema to me. I mean, and I think that's partly, Mum, I'm not pulling out the old violin, but I'm just, you know, having been left alone on my own a lot in you know, obviously at home. I think one of the things, not that I made a decision, but I remember thinking I never wanted to leave any of my children alone. Anyway, I don't think they got past it. They got fully investigated. I don't think they got past. Yeah, no, I agree. You just don't leave kids alone in a foreign country, says Dawny. Well, yeah, well, there you go. In other news, finally, as we sum up, Iggy Pop, what a guy. Shirtless Iggy Pop, 78, wheeled off the stage in a coffin during a shocking farewell concert. I roared with laughter at this. Look, Matt, what's a nutter? Look, waving from a coffin. Is that funny, or is it just in such bad taste? Or is it, if it's his coffin and his life, is it his right to do it? It's all right. Is it all right to wheel yourself off in a coffin? I mean, you know, it's gallows humor. I think it's hysterical, personally. Jordan O'Sullivan, oh my God, I think it's great, Elaine Denning. Hilarious, Penny Albertella. Mile, brilliant. I love it. Faith Goodman, did Maddie's friend who went missing in Sussex ever get found? No, we were talking about him just the other day. Goldie, hilarious. That's Iggy Pop for you. Let's have a look at him. It's hysterical, isn't it? Look, he's a fine figure of a man, isn't he? He looks like a packet of biltong. Look, there he goes. Into the coffin, and I'm off. See ya. Cheerio. That'd be me. That would be me at his age. And finally, for any women who are, Lynn J has just gifted, look at that, has just gifted 5 more memberships. You're very generous. You've done a few this week. Careful, darling. 5 of you will suddenly have anonymous, well, not anonymous, because you know it is Lynn J, but you'll suddenly get unexpected memberships. Go and check out our Sunday shows. Go to the Sunday show playlist, and you can catch up on all the shows we've uploaded. At least you won't get leg cramp in the coffin, Julie. And in final news, given it's coffee moaning, women who drink coffee age better, says a study that took 30 years. Yeah, this is a curious one. Let me just find the story. I'm not funny. Sometimes you think, oh, shall I go with the Times? No, I'll go with the New York Post. Research suggests that consuming moderate amounts of caffeine can help you live longer. Scientists from Harvard wanted to see if the caffeine source matters. So they tracked the midlife coffee, tea, cola, and decaf coffee consumption of 47,000 nurses. In the 30-year follow-up period, about 3,700 women met the criteria for healthy aging. The findings suggest that caffeinated coffee, not tea or decaf, may uniquely support aging trajectories that preserve both mental and physical function. So, guys, the first thing you need to do after this, well done, Penny, go and get yourself a coffee. Something about Gaza later today. In the meantime, there's also a sweet little, silly little vlog landing later today. I don't want to spoil it. There's a little bit of surprise in there. And that's your lot at the moment. Yeah. Okay, guys. Have a lovely day. I've always been a tea girl, but I do love my iced coffees. Iced coffees, though, I'm not entirely sure they count because of the amount of sugar in them. Try and wrap your head around a black espresso, double espresso.